Alright, so I've got my bearing pressed back on. I cleaned the bearing up best I could and then put new oil on it and spun it around. I got the seal on here and I got it lifted the whole way up. And the challenge I'm going to have is I got to put this hub down over top and get that seal in this little lip right here. And so I made a jig. There's probably a tool for that, but this is what I'm going to try to do. I drilled a 3-inch hole in this jig here. Stick it in there like that. Put this little wedge in the other side. And hopefully I can just kind of, not beat it, but I'm going to use a mallet and try to just press that down over top of that new seal is the plan. Okay, looks like it's set. I'm going to grab my mallet. Alright, so the mallet wasn't working out, so I'm going to try this setup here. Fortunately, I have these big clamps, so I'm trying to just clamp a little at a time, try to draw it together and see if I can set the seal that way, because the mallet thing was not working. Clamp's just about ready to slip off. Okay, I think I've got it set. I got it in there. All right, that worked. Beautiful. Okay, I had to reposition this over here to the vise to hold this. I had to put the gear on and put just the nut. Don't have all the washers on there yet, but just trying to use the nut and the gear to drive this bearing down onto the shaft to its original location. I mean, this is the only wrench I have for a big enough socket, so I'm just gonna press it on there, nice and gentle. I got to crank down there real close to where it needs to be. Not quite all the way, there's still some slop, but now that I got some thread exposing, I'm going to put on 2 more washers that were on there originally. These little, really thin shim washers, and they were underneath, between the gear and the bearing. So, make sure everything looks good there. I put a couple squirts of oil on there. Why not, right? washer. And then the nut. And then I'm going to crank it down, hopefully to its final location. And then I need to line up that little, I don't know if you can see it. See if I can get it there. That little, back it away. A little divot on top of the nut there gets lined up with the keyway. See if you guys can see if I can tilt that there. Where's the keyway's over here? Yeah. So that little dimple needs to line up with the keyway when it's tight, and then you kind of ping that little divot over into the keyway. I guess that's a way to keep it from spinning out when you're using it. Still got that O-ring seal to put on there yet. Get that lined up with the keyway. See if I can do another rotation. Okay, got it. So the spins just fine. And there it is. Gotta get that seal there. All right, here's my other seal. There. Now that this thing's all put together, I'm curious to how the seals perform. I guess my main concern would probably be this inner seal in there. Part 3 will be installing the belt pulley assembly on the tractor, and the only way to know how those seals are going to perform is to run it and see if it holds back the oil. And hopefully I'll get to that with the next few days or week and see. Now I have a bunch of shims that go right here between this housing and the tractor, and they talk about the spacing and getting the correct lashing on this gear. That's in one of my manuals, so I'm going to have to read over that. Meanwhile, make sure that I do that correctly. I do have right here, let's see here, all these little shims, spacers, and my dad kept those, and I cleaned them up. They were rusty, and I steel wooled them real good, coated them with oil, and stored them in this bag here. And I would presume that should be fairly simple. I bet all those go on there, and spacing is correct, but I think you got to check. You don't want to bind it up and ruin the gear. Like I said, that'll be part 3.